chilling tale. 17 days ago, writer and comedian Graham Linehan was arrested by 5 armed cops after landing in London on a flight from the United States. In one of the most absurdly melodramatic arrests in recent memory, the free speech advocate had his collar felt on suspicion of inciting violence against trans people. Serious stuff, you might think. But this is what actually sparked the joke, nevertheless. Yet the British state felt it was appropriate to take the kind of chilling action that would make George Orwell feel, well, a little bit cliched. But a huge positive step which has come out of Graham's ongoing plight is the slow creep on free speech in the United Kingdom is suddenly front and centre of people's minds. President Trump himself has voiced concerns, and he may well raise it with Keir Starmer when the pair meet in the morning. The President used his state banquet speech at Windsor Castle tonight to suggest sacred values must be protected. Yet once again, we're forced to ask that question. What the hell is going on in Britain? Well, Graham Linehan joins me tonight from Phoenix, Arizona. And Graham, we're going to ask that big question in a moment. But first of all, I have a question for you. Are you OK?
Yeah, this laser eye operation that I recently had, it's nothing to do with my recent travails. But listen, Harry, I just have to make a quick correction to your opening, to your introduction. I didn't say a trans man, I said a trans woman.
Sorry, of course, yes.
The language, as you know, is always topsy-turvy in this debate because they like it that way, because it's confusing. So the best way I suggest everyone think of the word trans is it means opposite. And in my case, I was talking about males in women's space.
Yes, so I think we got the point. But yes, no.
Yeah, sorry.
No, not at all. I mean,
but yeah, I mean, of course, it's insane. It's insane. But like, I think the real story, I mean, clearly there's a free speech crisis in the UK. Not because of, I mean, our ability to say, for instance, common sense things like there's only 2 sexes has been severely curtailed over the last 10 years. You know, now that is a completely insane situation, first of all. But what we've had recently is, because people are beginning to realize that that trans ideology is a busted flush, many of the most dangerous players are starting to lash out. We've seen it in the murder of Charlie Kirk. And in the UK, we've seen it in this disgraced ex-policeman, Lindsay Watson, who is using the police as his own private security team. He's behind many of the arrests, and an ex-sex offender called Stephanie Hayden is behind the others. So it's not just a free speech question, it's a police corruption question. And I have statements from several people who say that some of these trans activists didn't know their address, and then they had an experience with the police, including an arrest that wasn't recorded, and then these trans activists had their address.
Let's step back a bit and talk about. We're going to get into the values of it all. But first of all, for our viewers and our listeners who don't know the full story, could you just tell us from the beginning about your arrest? When did you first realise something was wrong? And I know we can't get into the specifics really on what's going on currently, but where are we now?
Oh no, I can tell you everything about what's going on. I mean, where are we now? We've had to go to the courts to get my ridiculous bail restrictions removed.
Which was you weren't allowed to continue using social media, to continue using X as part of the.
Yes, but they forgot to forbid me from using my Substack.
Indeed, so I was able to get and that's how you put the flare up originally, that you'd been arrested, and you told the world via Substack. But do you feel like they were, bail conditions that mean you can't use social media? That is a gagging clause, isn't it? Absolutely.
And another one of the victims of this crime gang that I'm telling you about has been told that he's not allowed to share his crowdfunder. Now, this is the police overstepping the mark to an extraordinary degree. And I simply don't know what magic these men have over the police. But I think it should be urgently addressed. I'm not sure. Is this live, or are we going
We are live,
later?
Yes. So
okay,
just bear that one in mind.
If anyone from Trump's team sees this, I suggest they request an urgent meeting with the chief of police in the UK, because everybody knows this is happening, except, of course, the mainstream media, which ignores it. And
Not all of us.
it's an absolute outrage.
The police did, after your arrest, Mark Rowley, or allies of Mark Rowley, made it clear that he was seeking guidance from the government, guidance from ministers on how that common sense, to use a quote, can be applied to policing. Do you have any sympathy with the police that the laws themselves are incredibly murky and are being exploited in basically lawfare by activists, or do you think is it legal overreach, or is it police overreach, or is it a mess somewhere in the middle?
Well, you know, I think Occam's razor comes into it, which is that the kind of most obvious explanation is the explanation, and I think
that would normally be
bureaucracy.
incompetence, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, you know, but it's an incompetence that's not kind of the police's fault. When the police came off the Macpherson investigation, or the Macpherson tribunal, well, sorry, what was it? The report, the Macpherson report, which called them institutionally racist, they were severely traumatized by this and humiliated by this. And unfortunately, they overcorrected. And Stonewall UK, which over the years transformed from an extremely important organization for lesbians, gays, and bisexuals, turned into an organization for cross-dressing men. And they lied to the police about the nature of the Equality Act for like, you know, a decade. So now what we're dealing with is with policemen who, as my guy did to me when he interviewed me, used the term someone's sex assigned at birth. In fact, he didn't use sex, of course. He said gender assigned at birth.
Which has been through the court. So that has been through the Supreme Court now as exactly. Not valid, yes.
Yeah, it's activist language. And every single police force and every single NHS branch, look at what NHS Fife are putting Sandy Peggy through. They're torturing that poor woman. You know, they've been captured by this ridiculous ideology that people like Keir Starmer and politicians and so on can't answer a single question about. You ask them the most basic questions about what they believe, and they cannot tell you any answer.
Is that because they are themselves confused, themselves muddled, or they are scared of a political backlash? Obviously, the tide, I think, has turned in this debate, not least in terms of yourself, with J.K. Rowling, with other prominent people who've spoken out on this, columnists, some of them sitting in this building who have helped lead that charge. Is it that politicians are playing catch-up with the reality of the world, or are they just trying to... Is there a sort of political row here? Are they trying to win votes somewhere?
Their biggest problem is their staffers. Just as the Old Vic Theatre in London robbed London of a Terry Gilliam, Stephen Sondheim musical. They robbed London of that because he made a joke, you know? Just in the same way that Jerry Sadowitz at I can't remember, I think it was the Assembly Rooms in Edinburgh was banned because of their idiot staffers, you know? Basically what's been happening is that these stupid, you know, cow-like staffers are calling the shots. I know there's one company, but I can never remember whether it's Lush or Pure or...
Well, we will check that. One of those, a company, go on.
It's a company that deals with feminine, lovely things.
An unnamed cosmetic company. Let's go with that.
An unknown, yeah. No, I wouldn't say cosmetic. It's more like smelly bath bombs. But anyway,
I can't think who that might be, but we got you.
I believe the CEO of one of these organizations, and I won't say it's them just in case, but one of these organizations is absolutely terrified of his staffers.
Yes.
And there was one guy named Christian Henson, who was with a company called Spitfire Productions. And he said something along the lines of, I agree with Graham Linehan and J.K. Rowling, giving children puberty-blocking drugs is disgusting, or something like this. I think within a couple of days, there was a letter signed by, can't remember how big his company is, but it was either 50 or 500 staffers saying if he came into work, they wouldn't. And in the end, he had to give up the business he created because of these people. Yeah. So basically what we've done is, over the last 10 years, without realizing it, is we have activated a mob who can come for us at any time. All you have to do is step outside what they decide are acceptable limits of conversation, and they will just try to destroy your life.
Do you still think that is the case, though, or do you think the Rubicon has begun to be crossed? Not least with your case, where you now have the police saying this is a bit mental. You know, you've got politicians going, obviously this is overreach. Have we reached a turning point, so to speak? And we'll be using those words later on, funnily enough. But is the tide turning?
I don't think the tide will turn until a politician is asked what a woman is, and he says an adult human female. Until reality is restored in the UK, these kind of agents of chaos, like the ones who are tormenting me and other victims at the moment, they will continue to, you know, have the police as their own private security.
And you feel it's a moral cowardice? Because I was reading about your, you know, will we ever see, for example, Father Ted the musical? There are millions and millions of people out there, I think, who would love to see Father Ted the musical, but I think that was something else that got sort of sacrificed on the council block, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, my problem now is I have such contempt for my colleagues and for Jimmy Mulville and Sonia Friedman for what they put me through. And what they destroyed, that I don't think I could work with them. You know, when they were trying to get rid of me, I said, I will come in every so often and look at a rehearsal and tell you if it's going the right way or not, you know? And I asked for that, and they refused. They said, no, we want a clean break. So because I don't ever want to see any of these people again, I'm happy to accept those terms, along with, of course, a public apology.
You've lost a lot in this battle that you've been fighting over the last few years. Your professional friends, personal friends, it's affected your family, it's affected you, no doubt. In the politest possible way, do you think it was worth it all along? Would you have done anything differently?
Well, I keep getting asked what I would have done differently. And the thing is, Harry, my life would have been very different if you had existed 9 years ago and spoken to me about these issues. But I had close friends, including people like Louis Theroux, John Ronson, Adam Buxton, and many more. And they all refused to give me the room to explain where I was coming from. And they did it because they were cowards. They did it because they were disloyal. And, you know, it's a hard thing to be told that I should have done something differently when all of my friends should have done something differently. They should have stood up for a friend. They should have stood up for their wives and children. But they were all cowards. And
you think that's a generational stain amongst the liberal industries that you were mingling in for decades?
Yeah, absolutely. I never want to have anything to do with, you know, 99% of people in the UK's entertainment business. I think they are disgusting.
Where would you put yourself on the political spectrum? Not necessarily party political anymore, but you've obviously been well, radicalised would be one word for it, and not in a negative way, I would say, either. Red-pilled is what the kids call it online. Where do you put yourself on the spectrum now?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm quite proud that I get it in the neck from both sides still, because I think the thing that I have in common with a lot of the people who've been fighting this is that we just won't be told what to do. You know, we are all kind of crotchety and stubborn and made of the kind of stuff that a lot of people don't seem to be made of. So my kind of political affiliations are with individual human beings, you know, and I have to say I'm ashamed that I didn't share Charlie Kirk more, because I was kind of put off by his toxicity. You know, so I was believing all the same things that were being said about me and not realizing that the same thing was being done to him that has been done to me. My Wikipedia, for instance, you know, I've had 10 years of people reading out the first page of my Wikipedia to me, which is essentially a trans activist screed, you know? So yeah, I mean, I kind of can't remember even where we began with this question. Oh yeah, my political leanings. I feel sorry that I didn't stand up for Charlie Kirk more. I realize now that the thought-terminating cliches, he said this, he said that, all of these have proven to be untrue. You know, we clearly, he's a Christian, I'm an atheist. We clearly would have had differences of opinion there.
That's the point, though, isn't it? You can't have that debate.
Best of men. But he looked like the best of men. You know, the way he spoke to college students, you know, and the way some of the left spoke back to him, the distinction could not be clearer. You know, we should stop talking about this because it really annoys me.
No, I don't doubt that. But do you think there's a, you know, obviously the world's attention is now on this issue. I mean, literally the silencing of free speech in the most horrific way. On Sunday, the President of the United States, the Vice President, half of the US government, Charlie Kirk's late widow will be in Phoenix, Arizona, not far from, you know, I believe, where you are now. And that brings me to that point. Are we at a turning point? Are we at an inflection point in the West of... is everyone waking up in time, or are we now, as Nigel Farage put it when he gave evidence to Congress, slipping slowly into an authoritarian hellhole?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem we have is that there are two subjects that we're not allowed to talk about.
Still.
And that's trans and Islam. You know, those are the two third-rail subjects that no one can open their mouth about for fear of being not killed by a lunatic jihadist, but actually arrested and put in jail by our own government, you know? And, you know, I certainly started feeling that the police in the UK were not working for me anymore. They were working, or for the public, they were working for these, for instance, the trans activists who've been harassing so many people over the last few weeks with the law. So, you know, I always just start to finish off and then lose the run of myself. What was the question again?
I know. I mean, is it too late? How are people waking up in time or not?
No, I do have.
And will the sort of legacy of Charlie Kirk be more people actually willing to pick up a microphone, pick up a keyboard, and actually say enough is enough?
Yeah, I think he's. You know, as I said in one tweet, they created 1 million Charlie Kirks when they shot him. You know. But I think that there's two things that people need to take on moving forward. The first thing is that trans healthcare needs to shift its focus onto detransitioners. When you talk about undoing the damage, that's something that's going to happen. Detransitioners have to be put first and foremost at the top of trans healthcare. Affirmation, puberty blockers has to be completely banned, and we need to help these people who've been destroyed by this movement. The other thing I'll say is the police, the FBI, and other organizations like that need to realize how much of this craziness that's happening, Charlie Kirk's death, murder, excuse me, women and men in women's prisons, straight women on Grindr. You know, these are things that show a world that's turned upside down. And the reason it's turned upside down is because there are currents underneath of connected online nihilists who are enjoying it, and they think it's funny, and they are manipulating people without people really realizing why. It's a little bit of a in the weeds subject to bring up, but I do think the influence of nihilistic online cultures on society is not being understood at the moment, and it's urgent that we understand it.
You're in Arizona. You were obviously arrested when you came back into the United Kingdom. Is your understanding that you may well have been in the United Kingdom when you sent the offending tweet? Were you? Yeah. There was a suggestion you might try and move to America permanently, claim political asylum from Donald Trump. Will you ever return to the United Kingdom? Is it lost to you?
I have such lovely friends who I made over the last, you know, feminists who I've befriended over the last 10 years, psychotherapists, social workers. You know, the asylum thing. I mean, my asylum statement was more about trying to cause as much embarrassment to Labour as I possibly can.
I think you did the trick there.
Good, because they deserve it. Because we need to get rid of politicians who, when asked the question, what is a woman, they can't answer it. Yeah. And I've been suffering in the UK because of these stupid spineless politicians and their absence from positions that they should be holding during tumultuous times. You know, Keir Starmer hid from this issue.
Yeah,
He
for
hid from
years.
this
He did
issue.
it.
Yes. And ordinary people have to fight it every day because he's absent from the battlefield.
Well, Keir
Keir
Starmer will stand next to Donald Trump tomorrow in a matter of hours at a press conference and Donald Trump is well aware of your case. He mentioned it in passing not long ago about a clampdown, an unusual clampdown in the United Kingdom. Are you hoping it's going to get the global sort of box office attention of the state visit treatment tomorrow? Do you have any indication whether there might be some words?
Story?
Yeah,
my story. Yeah, I mean, what would be like after 10 years of desperately trying to get people to listen to what was happening to women's rights and children and gender clinics, if I'd known I only had to be arrested to get it to be made into a international story, I would have tried to arrange it much earlier, and I do hope he uses me. I also hope he speaks about Sandy Peggy. I hope he speaks about the Darlington nurses. I hope he speaks about a legal Gangar who's taking Stephanie Hayden to court or is being taken by Stephanie Hayden to court. I hope someone is feeding him these issues. I suggest Andy No is a good person. He's a brilliant journalist who's been covering these types of leftist movements for years. But if anyone would like to get in touch with him, he'll bring everyone up to speed.
Well, Graham, listen, all power to your elbow. Thank you for sharing your story. I know it's been a hell of a couple of it's been a hell of a decade for you. Yeah. Thank you for joining us on Save the West, and very best of luck.
Thank you so much, Harry.
Coming up next, we've got Joel Berry. He's the editor of the satirical website The Babylon Bee, and later, if you won't miss it, Nigel Farage. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Harry Cole Saves the West. Joining me now is Joel Berry, managing editor of The Babylon Bee, the satirical website that's built its brand on being able to say exactly what they want, no matter how provocative. Joel, I don't mean to start on a downer, but in the light of the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk last week, what does this moment say about free speech in America as one of its greatest advocates?
Well, I think it was a wake-up call to America. What I've seen in the wake of Charlie's horrific death is engagement, political engagement, to bring dialogue to the public square, unlike anything I've seen before. I just actually, a few hours ago, came from a campus event to honor Charlie and to continue his legacy and his commitment to an open dialogue in the free marketplace of ideas. And so I think, his death is tragic, but I think what it did is it spawned a million more free speech advocates. And I think it's a very exciting time for America, in spite of the tragedy, in spite of how sad it is. I think we're about to see a conversation like we've never seen before.
So it's your hope that we're not going to be in an America where a joke can lead to, being shot?
Yeah, I don't want that.
No, I mean, but it's...
we've had everything. The Babylon Bee has been up against it for years. We started out, we really just wanted to tell jokes and make people laugh on the internet.
Yeah.
But we started getting fact-checked by the mainstream media. We started having the government, through the government-funded NGOs trying to censor us. And shut us up. And then, infamously, we got kicked off of Twitter for misgendering. And so we've always kind of fought this free speech battle just for the right to tell our own jokes. And, we prefer bullets not flying. We're not.
No, I totally agree.
That's not our game.
But do you ever, when you've got your finger right there on the publish button, do you ever stop and think, oh, this one could get me arrested, like it could well do if you tweeted in the United Kingdom or worse?
Well, part of what I do at the Babylon Bee is I do try to say the things that I know that you guys.
Oh, we lost.
But I also have a very kind of cantankerous personality. I like controversy, and I'm always going to, if I come upon a joke that I know is going to be controversial, typically that makes me want to publish it even more. I'm a bit of a troublemaker.
Exactly what Charlie Kirk said when he's told he shouldn't have a speaker at one of his rallies. He said, I've never wanted the guy more. In the last couple of years, the tension has obviously been, the temperature has been high. Have you noticed an increase in sort of threats towards what you say, not necessarily from the government, but online, the rise in violent rhetoric? Is it reaching sort of boiling point? We've lost Joel there. We're going to try and get him back. We will take a little break while we do that. Welcome back to Harry Cole Saves the West. We will try and get Joel back to finish that fascinating conversation about free speech in America. But in the meantime, next, a man who does not need an introduction. It's Nigel Farage, close friend of President Trump, the leader of Reform, and if the polls are to be believed, Britain's next Prime Minister. I called up with Nigel Farage earlier and I started by asking him how he feels about being snubbed from tonight's state banquet at Windsor Castle.
I don't expect anything from this government at all. And you can argue, if you like, it's the King's invitation. It's not really, is it? No, Starmer wants to pretend that I don't exist. Do you know, he doesn't even answer my letters. I've only sent him 3. And the last one was, could we have a few peers, please? Because it seems to make sense. So look, you know, look, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
He won't be there for that long. Let them have a lovely evening. You know, I was in the Oval Office a couple of weeks ago. Last night, I was chatting with Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent. We even had a reception in DC the other week with double digits numbers of cabinet ministers. So snub me, Starmer, if you like. I don't really care.
Donald Trump and Keir Starmer very chummy in person.
Oh, absolutely. So much in common. So much in common. The great extroverts, big personalities, successful entrepreneurs, king golfers. So much in common. It's remarkable.
But privately, you and I both know that Donald Trump, as I suggest, questioned his ratings to put it in TV terms that the president might understand and put it politely. How sustainable do you think this relationship really is, given that there are a number of issues on America's agenda: free speech, India, trade, tech, taxes, to name but a few. Do you think it's going to, the chumminess is going to last, or do you think the president might do what he's done in the past and start to take a few swings of the bat tomorrow?
Look, I'll end the sarcasm for a moment, right? We should view ourselves as being incredibly lucky that we have an American president with such a deep, emotional, soft spot for the United Kingdom. That is to Starmer's advantage. Starmer himself, of course, also is personable and polite, doesn't cause offence, and has gone out of his way to be nice to the American president. So on that level, Trump likes him, sees no threat from him, and that's a good thing. But I thought when they sat in the big chairs at Turnberry a few weeks ago, and Trump was asked about, electoral prospects in Britain, he said, sure, Keir can beat my friend Nigel, as long as he's tough on borders, tough on law and order, and drills lots of oil and gas in the North Sea. So, you can make your own mind up what that really meant. We've got a great relationship with this administration as a country, and that's a really good thing. Surely
the easiest thing for Keir Starmer to do now, he's looking for a new man in Washington, is to send you out there, try and neuter reform by giving you Peter Mandelson's job. Presumably that ship sailed, right?
Well, in 2017, Trump himself tweeted, Nigel Farage would make a very good ambassador. It didn't happen then. It won't happen now. It's a great shame because the wine cellar's amazing. But there you are. We're probably going to get, an MI6 boss or someone like that. And also, even if I was offered the job, how could I possibly take it now that I'm leader of Reform?
You see the president recently. Does he consider you? Have you spoken about the fact that if a general election was held in the UK tomorrow, you were going to be the Prime Minister? Does he know that?
He knows that. He knows that. In fact, all the American administration are acutely aware of it. And they think they see some similarities in what they've done and what we've done. And you know what? We speak the same language. We share a culture. But of course, our politics is very, very different. Other than one thing. One of the big reasons that Trump got elected is he said he would stop illegal migrants coming into America through the southern border. Looking at the numbers, they're down by over 90%. And I kind of think that dynamic in the American election will play out in the British general election whenever that happens too.
I know we don't have much time, sir, so I'm going to push you on an issue which I think is going to dominate, the press conference tomorrow in some form, and that is free speech. You were at Congress last week in DC. We saw you there. You made some very forthright points on what is going on in the United Kingdom, the case of Lucy Connolly, the case of Graham Linehan. Have you raised that privately with the president, and is he aware of how bad things are?
I may have discussed it with some members of the administration. I can't quite remember, Harry, is my diplomatic answer to you. They are very worried indeed about it because, as I said already in this talk, we share a culture. We watch the same films. We listen to the same music. We read the same books. They believe in their First Amendment rights very, very strongly. They believe in free speech up to the moment where you shout fire in a theatre or genuinely incite.
Yes.
And I would be very surprised if these weren't very important parts of the private discussion that take place at Chequers tomorrow. After all, an American tech entrepreneur could now be arrested at Heathrow Airport, despite not being a British citizen, for something said when they weren't even in this country. And if you're seriously talking about 20 to 30 billion of investment into the UK by tech giants, etc., that conversation absolutely has to happen.
And one more, if I may. We can't really talk about the free speech, the debate about it, without referencing the horrific incident in Utah last week. I know Charlie Kirk was a friend of yours. I know you were close with him. Can I get your reflections on what's happened and what you think his legacy should be and what his legacy could be?
Charlie was an amazing guy. He wasn't just a powerful orator. He wasn't just somebody who had very strong, very fundamental beliefs with Christianity, deep Christianity, right at the root of it. The skill of Charlie was he was prepared to openly debate and to do it in a civil manner anyone that disagreed with him. And so often in the polarity of American politics, you get CNN or Fox News, and everybody on Fox thinks one thing, everybody on CNN thinks the opposite, and we don't really have much good cross debate. Charlie was brilliant at talking to people with totally different worldviews, and in that sense, he served the democratic cause for young people in America in the most remarkable way. His killing, his assassination, his murder, simply the most brutal and awful thing. I have managed not to look at the close-up video shots of it, although I've been sent it on my phone. It's brutal, ghastly for his children, who have to live with that forever. Very bad news for free speech. Can something good come out of the murder of Charlie Kirk? Just maybe it will. Just maybe it will, in a sense that more and more young people will start to look at what Charlie had to say, start thinking and talking about it. I personally feel desperately sad. I
can imagine. And I think if the left think they're going to silence him by that, I think a lot of microphones are going to be picked up in that cause. Do you think the temperature is too high on both sides of the Atlantic, though? Are you worried about, you are an outspoken public figure. Are you worried that we're going in a very dangerous direction? Are you concerned about your own safety?
I'm very worried that what I say should be considered outspoken, when all I stand up for are things that normal countries do. Normal countries make their own laws, govern themselves, control their borders, and try and enforce law and order within their countries. The fact that those views that I have, which when I was a kid were mainstream, are now considered outspoken, shows you how much trouble the Western world is in. When it comes to my own safety and security, well, you know what? Of course, being a public figure is a risky old game.
You look after yourself, Mr. Farage. Thank you for joining us on Save the West. A very poignant note to end that. Thank you for joining us. Reform leader Nigel Farage there claiming President Trump knows he'll be Britain's next Prime Minister. Sadly, we have lost Babylon B's Joel. We'll try and get him back another day. But joining us in the studio, the uncancelable Jeremy Kyle.
The uncanceled. I've been sat. This is an honour to be in your. This is lovely, isn't it?
Well, normally, for the connoisseurs, normally Jeremy is sitting in this seat and I'm sitting over there. But how the tide has turned. Jeremy, Nigel Farage there saying that he's worried about the state of the West. We are here to save the West. How would Jeremy Kyle save the West?
I think it's really interesting if you listen to what Nigel said, that the views that he had as a kid were considered mainstream, and now some would like to tell you that those are outrageous views. I've watched, listen, I've been at Talk 3 years. I was involved with Nigel and Reform at the party conference some weeks ago.
Yeah, we'll get on to that in a moment, yeah.
But I would say this, and I've said it for as long as I can remember, really. I think that the West, if you want to call it that, is at a seminal moment, certainly this country. I don't think it works anymore for our Prime Minister or institutions on what we know is the left to say anybody that wants to complain about free speech, about the immigration problems, about the NHS, about our military, about our tax situation, about our police, you know, what Hurty word crimes, all that rubbish. These people are not far right, Harry. That march at the weekend it wasn't 100,000 people as the mainstream media would have you believe. It was a lot more than that. And I don't think Starmer's standing up and saying these are all far right nutters works anymore. I think there's far too many people, and I voted Reform. I've made no signals in the last election because for one reason and one reason only. I was brought up Tory family, low taxation, all the things that you know about, strong military, strong police, all of that. I remember watching a Tory MP in the last election saying, when Farage was talking about those things, oh, my God, this is far right. It's not far right. The Conservative Party, I believe, moved left. He speaks
there's that great graphic, isn't there, where it's sort of the Conservatives stand still. Yeah. And they get more, you know, and the left goes further and further and further and further, and their views haven't changed. The left look like far right from where they're standing.
Completely, and I get. With any argument, there will be far-right people. With any argument, there will be far-left people. But Nigel Farage, and I felt it in Birmingham and I feel it every single day on the show, is representing millions of hard-working, just people who perhaps were never invested in politics but have finally gone, I've said it to you a million times, you know, I pay my tax, I live within the rules, I've never asked for a handout, and I feel now like I'm 28th in the queue, and that doesn't work for me anymore.
You're told to sit down, be quiet and pay up.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think.
And then you look at people who shouldn't get that and you go, I'm not racist, but hold on a minute, you've not paid and you're at the front of the queue.
There's obviously a sort of feeling in it. Reform are at 30% of the polls in the UK. Nigel Farage there was talking about how the American administration were acutely aware of that. If a general election was held tomorrow, Nigel Farage would in all likelihood be our Prime Minister. Is it, in your view, a particularly unique talent of Nigel Farage that is attracting voters, or is it the fact that after 14 years of Tories, people have fed up with that, they wanted change, they've got Labour have come in, there's been a disaster, and people have said, well, keep that change, we don't want that. And actually, it's a last roll of the dice, really. It's almost, you know what?
It's a combination.
What have we got to lose?
I think it's a combination. I think the thing about Nigel Farage is he's authentic.
Yeah.
I get it. For me, it's in his DNA, which it isn't with Starmer. He can smell it, feel it, sense it. He's got antennae politically. He seems to be talking about things that people are concerned about. It's not based on what a focus group tell you. It's based from inside. But he doesn't read to... Kemi Badenoch asks questions via note form. That's fine for some, but Farage does it from inside. I think that resonates with people. I think the other point you make is entirely relevant, that for the first time in our history, I think people are going, so we go from this to that, we make this, break that, put it up again, left, right, left, right. People's argument always about Farage and Reform now is, are they experienced enough?
Yeah.
You've got a Labour front bench who have never, ever worked in anything.
Never run a work stall. Yeah.
Nothing. Farage, Richard Tice, these people have run successful businesses. Of course, their infrastructure isn't what the Tory party's is. And, of course, that will take time. But I think the British people are saying, do you know what? Could it be worse than it is right now?
And actually, is it not a feeling, if you look at what Donald Trump's done across the pond, and we, you know, our credo of the show, as we've discussed, is, you know, what is Britain getting right? What is Britain getting wrong? What's America getting right? What's America getting wrong? And where can we learn from each other? Donald Trump, first term, he brought in a load of politicians, essentially.
Absolutely.
And, you know, they basically acted like politicians. This time round, he's filled his cabinet with people who actually are experienced in their field. They are not necessarily creatures of Washington. They have come in from the outside, from business. Scott Bessent, the perfect example, the Treasury Secretary, he has run a, you know, to varying degrees, multi-billion-pound hedge funds. He has made a very successful career out of that. And he knows Wall Street inside out. He knows the Fed inside out. He knows the rules inside out. Compare and contrast, say, dare I say it, Rachel Reeves, who may or may not have worked in the complaints department at HBOS or wherever it was. Can you see Farage? You know, yeah, he's saying that, but is Britain ready for... Is the political class in Britain ready to open up to outsiders? Because...
Who are the political class? What do
you know who they are. The BBC, The Guardian, the Chatterati, the people that go on...
I don't think they're going to have a choice.
Go on other shows other than Harry Cole Saves the World.
I've spoken to Nigel about this, genuinely, in great detail. And I think there's a great belief within reform that you can... What are they going to do? Sit and wait for everybody to come from the Tory party? No, it shouldn't be a rest home for disgruntled Tory ex-ministers. For me, if you could take people from business, if you could take people with experience, if you could take people who have actually lived...
From the media,
well,
perhaps?
whatever, yeah, maybe, one day. But if you could do that, Henry Bolton's a great example. He's a border enforcement expert. They won't even talk to the guy. The guy's done it across Europe. The governments, repeated governments won't talk to him. For me, it's really, really simple. You would get a cabinet or a government of experienced people. One thing about reform right now, they've got lawyers working already on how they're going to prepare. Now, maybe they will be the government, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But right now, he says and listens to the right people, says the right things, and seems to be... But the criticism will be... I've heard the Tories say, oh, that reform's new and it hasn't got the infrastructure. I'm telling you that the majority of British people will go, could it be worse than we've got right now?
Do you think Nigel Farage is the man to do it?
Yes, 1,000,000%.
You know, you have any idea how, you know, the cacophony of noise that will be greeted by an election campaign of someone who's saying, not only are we going to leave the ECHR, we're going to tear up the Equalities Act, we're going to put the Human Rights Act, which enshrines all of the ECHR legislation into our legal system. You can just imagine, you can see it already to the charity sector, the public sector.
I think it'd be very hard. It's the blob, everybody.
But in order to do that, you know, you've got one shot at that.
Well, I've asked this question repeatedly, and I've said, let's just imagine the scenario where Nigel Farage wins the next election with a majority. And I've said it to Tyson, I've said it to Nigel. You talk about the power of the blob. They talk about, you know, how institutions...
What Donald Trump in the United States calls the swamp, the deep state.
10,000 civil servants who seemingly make decisions for an democratically elected government. I would say this. Right now, as a voter... He's the only one, I believe, personally, that would be prepared to have a go. Does he succeed? I don't know. But for me, Harry, it's really simple, right? So why Trump won in America? It's a simple theory that some people just turn their noses up. Donald Trump puts in front of the American people his plan. He knows full well that a lot of people in America won't agree with that.
48% of the country.
But he's going to say, if a majority wanted, let me tell you something, legally, anybody that tackles me, legally, papers, mainstream media, I'm doing it for the 52%. Now, I am looking for somebody in the United Kingdom who says, here I am. I'm not your perfect human being.
If you don't like it,
don't vote for me.
Vote for the other guy.
I said to him the other day, they'll come for you. And he went, somebody had rung him up, some journalist, and gone, you know, Nigel, have you gambled? Have you smoked? Have you womanised? Have you gambled? And he went, all four. Write that. Because we are sick to death of politicians who pretend to be squeaky clean and 3 months later they're caught with their trousers down. I think there's something authentic about Nigel Farage. It might be him, it might not, but I think this country is crying out for a Nigel Farage.
That it is, though, and we're going into a stage where the politics is returning to the streets rather than to think. My worry is that a reform government would come in, it would meet the exact same institutional roadblocks that David Cameron found, Theresa May found, Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss will park. But and now even Keir Starmer
looks the worst prime minister in history.
Even Keir Starmer, well, jury's out on that.
Nearly.
Keir Starmer is, it's taken him about 3 months into office before he goes, oh God, all of these people said the system is broken were correct. What happens when Nigel Farage, being that outsider bet, that one last roll of the dice, give it a go, when he then hits the roadblock?
Well, then we're finished, aren't we?
Well, that's bad.
But that's part of what I'm saying to you. Do you not think the majority of British people might just go, is there anything to lose? Maybe it's a new... I don't know if it's in. It could be the Greens,
or do politics,
God.
or do we go to where the situation in Germany, the situation in France, where politics is getting more polarised and more extreme, the rise of the hard left, the rise of the far right. I don't think that's a particularly... that is something we want to avoid. We're quite blessed in this country that the hard right and the hard left in this country are essentially clowns.
Maybe I'm wrong. I completely agree with you, and there is nothing about the far right or the far left that warms me in any way. But we need principled, firm, hopefully, decision-making. You're right. Yeah. Farage might win a majority. He might come up against the swamp, the blob, whatever you want to call it, and actually fall on his backside. But I just believe that somebody sent me a message the other day and I thought it was really interesting. They said, Jez, in my humble opinion, once the silent majority start to realise that their voice can be heard, the government of any colour is in trouble. I think that people in this country, and I think that march, it's very easy for the government to go, oh, 100,000 people, they're all far right and there were 25 arrests. Not to mention in Notting Hill, 500 arrests, but let's get to the facts. I just think people will go, can we be any worse off if we gave these people a chance?
You've been on the, you've been through the mill. You've bounced back. You've been a commentator, an observer. You've been in the media for decades. You've seen it up close. It's starting to feel to me you're ready to be the man in the arena.
Really? Listen,
you were at the Reform conference last week. You hosted it. Did you get a flavour of that? Do you like that?
I'm very honest about that, and I think maybe also it's to do with being really old. 60. You're supposed to say, "I don't look it, Harry." Brilliant. Let's crack on.
I was told never to be afraid of dead air.
Hey, good boy. Who told you that? He's learning.
Producer Vic is
dead
clapping,
air. Yeah, what a Vic. Great. I would say this for the first time in my life. I'm thinking about my kids and my grandkids. I think this country is not on a precipice. I'm not saying that, but I think we are at a
crossroads, a turning point.
A crossroads, a seminal moment or a turning point. And I don't believe that the majority of people, if they get off the ideological BS that runs on right and left, if you said to them, what needs changing in this country? We have spent years, quite rightly, in the United Kingdom doing everything for everybody, and quite rightly we should. We're the moral leaders. But suddenly with whether it's COVID or a cost of living crisis, people are going, food's gone up, electricity's gone up.
You sound like a politician, Jeremy Kyle. Just tell us, are you running or not?
We'll see.
Politician's answer. Right, I'm being told.
Maybe not.
Stay there, Jeremy Kyle, while I think about your future election campaign and your slogans. I'm told we might be able to have one more go with Joel Berry of the Babylon Bee, who's back with us. There he is. Joel, thank you. Sorry about that. I don't know if it's your end or our end, but I really wanted to carry on our conversation because it really does... it could not be more timely and it could not be more important. And something I really wanted to ask you is, I don't know how closely you follow what's going on in the United Kingdom, but we have overbearing regulation online. We have badly worded, drafted legislation that has dragged in journalists, comedians, dare I say, satirists. Do you believe that something like the Babylon Bee would be able to operate in the UK? If you were based here, would you not be worried about being arrested?
Yeah, well, I think we probably publish something on our site that would get us arrested in the UK at least every day, if not every week. It's sad to see from our side of the pond. It's kind of like a slow motion car wreck. What we see happening in the UK, and we really we're praying for you guys. You know, you guys are kind of our big brother, and we don't want the light of the West in Europe to die out. And so, you know, the thing that we see, you know, with mass immigration and kind of this falling away from God that has happened over the last, 100 years, my hope to turn this around for you guys is that there will be a resurgence of faith. You know, I want to see a spiritual revival, because so long I think people have put their faith in this idea of kind of like this secular democracy, science will replace religion, and we'll all kind of like work towards this utopia. And that's turned out not to be the case. You know, in the absence of Christianity, in the absence of faith, you're going to have something else rushing into that vacuum. And right now it's Islam. And it's a huge crisis in the UK. We see UK, becoming you're quickly becoming the Middle East.
I don't think it's quite as bad as sold. I mean, we have our problems, but I'm not quite sure it's like that. But a warning. I appreciate that we are seen as a warning to what could happen when you start to meddle in free speech. You start to move away from the core traditional values of the West. Yes. But then you've got someone like Pam Bondi, and I'm flipped between DC and London, but I'm looking at Pam Bondi, who came out yesterday and said they need to start regulating hate speech, and it'll be the government that decide that. And you're making the same mistakes that Britain has. Is that surely not something you guys need to be tackling quickly?
Absolutely. That was kind of a disastrous response from Pam Bondi and the Trump administration on this. Yeah. I hope that it was just kind of, she got her words and her messaging incorrect. But on its face, it looked like, you know, in order to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy, she was basically throwing his legacy in the garbage. You know, Charlie Kirk spent his life fighting against this idea of, you know, that there can even be hate speech or that some speech should be censored. And so we have to remain committed to this idea of free speech, whether it's on the left or the right, no matter who it's against. We have to be able to air out these kind of disliked opinions.
As Charlie Kirk says, I don't care about your emotions. I don't care about your feelings. I care about the facts. Donald Trump gave a sort of slightly bizarre response to Pam Bondi. He doesn't like his cabinet to be attacked publicly, but he didn't back her as such. Are you confident that the administration will be able to resist this?
Yeah, well, you know, I think one thing that I've learned about Trump is he learns, he adjusts as he needs to. And so I think that he's very responsive to the people. The backlash from the right against Trump and the administration was so swift when Pam Bondi said what she said. You know, I have confidence that I'll make the necessary adjustments. He has the right people on his team, and so I'm not too worried. It just made us look bad. It wasn't a good look. You're
not quite on the slippery slope yet, Joel. Look, thank you. I'm sorry about the technical problems. Thank you for joining us, and keep fighting the good fight. Thank you very much.
Thank
still
you.
With Jeremy Kyle. Still Jeremy Kyle. Jeremy Kyle's still here.
I love him. This is brilliant. I feel like I've created
Don't take the mic.
I'm not. I'm proud. Listen, I think it's brilliant.
This is hate speech.
I'm a massive fan. It's not.
Go on, we're running out. We've got a couple of minutes left. I just want to talk about what's going to happen tomorrow. Keir Starmer, Donald Trump standing there. The state visit, the banquet, the pomp and circumstance, the flyovers, the coaches, the glorious...
That's all done. He's a checkers. He's going to rip him a second one, isn't he?
Do you think he is, or is he still going to be on good behaviour? What's your hunch for tomorrow?
You never know with Donald Trump, do you? There's nothing predictable about him. We know that today the ego was fed. Everything was pomp and pageant.
Well, look,
it's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay.
The red arrows...
I believe that there are there's basically massive differences between the two administrations, but I think they both understand. I think, to give Starmer a little bit of credit, the one good thing that you could say is he's managed to sustain a relationship with Donald Trump, which is actually proving quite difficult for everybody else. So you could say well done on that front. But, you know, Donald Trump is Donald Trump. I fully suspect that he might get back to America on Friday and instigate a 100% tariff against us and say, thank you very much indeed. But we have to understand, all the people that are anti-Trump, and again, the mainstream media only talked about the protesters, today was the royals and the government doing what's best for Great Britain. And he loves all that. Absolutely important.
And exactly what we should be doing. In 30 seconds, where do you think we'll be tomorrow? Will the special relationship be stronger? Will the West be stronger on the back of this? Is this really, as Nigel Farage says, a bit of a charade, but ultimately the relationship is strong? Or...
I think the relationship is strong. I just don't think we know how strong or whether it will last, because I don't think Trump is predictable. And I also am going to tell you something that you probably don't agree with. I genuinely agree with Mike Graham. I don't think Starmer is going to last the year.
We will come back and talk about that. My one takeaway from today is that there was meant to be a flyover of F-35s. The
weather.
Exactly. I quite like the West's single most important fighter jet to be able to fly when it rains.
I was exactly the same. So let me get this right. There's going to be a war. I'm going. The red arrows are all right.
Jeremy Kyle, silence. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That was Harry Cole Saves the West. Remember to subscribe. YouTube.com. There's subscribers are mounting up. Harry Cole Saves the West on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us. Quite an evening.